We're talking about building up those kinds of relationships where you know that the person is doing what you expect them to be doing. You know they're doing things that are right for the company. And so you don't have to worry about it. You know they're making the right kinds of decisions in your absence. And so let's talk about a particular strategy. So we've talked first about the 3 reasons work doesn't get done. The next thing we're going to talk about is a particular strategy for this, and I call this the 4-step delegation process. And it's a 4-step delegation process because, once again, as we talked about, there's this idea in society that you can just tell someone to do something and the thing will get done. And as we talked about earlier in this program, that is a flat-out myth. That's not actually the way it works. That when you give someone something to do, you expect that it will not get done. That's always my expectation. When I have someone new and I give them something to do, I expect that it will not get done. And, well, how can I expect that? Well, that is the way it works because we haven't built the communication yet to make sure that it does get done. They may be confused about something. They may need more training. They may not be sure what the deadline is. And so there are a bunch of strategies. If you've been on a previous call, you heard about follow-up before the deadline. It's a really great way. A lot of people set their staff up for failures because they set a deadline, then they follow up after the deadline, so it's too late to do anything about it. And so, so one of these strategies is to follow up before the deadline. But what I really like to look at for delegating is that it's a 4-step process. And the steps, of course, don't go linearly, but you do have to do the first step before you can do the second step. You do have to do the second step before you can do the third step. And so what I want to do now is quickly talk through the 4 steps and then focus a little bit on the third step. The third step is really the key piece. When we talk about delegating, the third step is really the key piece. So the first step is to demonstrate. The first step is that you've got someone that you want to delegate something to, and you want them to do it. You have to show them how to do it, right? And there might be cases where someone already knows what they're doing, right? To hire them because they have these particular skills, but it still makes sense usually to walk them through it. Right, say this is how we do this here. Right, they trained under a different environment. They had different sorts of tools, and so I like, if you're training someone to do something, especially something that you've been doing, then I really recommend just sitting down with them and letting them watch while you do it. And if they want to jump in, that's fine. But there's this kind of first piece. So you have to show them what it is. It's not enough to tell them, right? You have to actually walk them through what it is you want to get done. We'll say, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. And you know what? It's a third myth of delegating, that delegating costs you more time initially. It's later on, right? I'm to the point now that fish window cleaning does not cost me a lot of time. But I spent a lot of time in fish window cleaning early on. And so I really look at delegating as an investment in the 4-step delegation process as an investment in this end state that we're looking for, right? You invest the time up front. It does take a lot of time. But once you put the time in, then it goes much more smooth. So the first step is to demonstrate what it is that you do. The second step is to work together. This is when you sit down side by side and you both share responsibility for getting the task done. So they take some of the lead, you take some of the lead. It's really a great way. It's really a great way of getting to work with people and finding out what sorts of questions they have and helping them through this. I do this a lot. We have an admin person who, office manager who handles our payroll and everything. And everyone thinks payroll is really straightforward. No, I'll just run payroll for you. But you know what? It takes 5 to 6 to 7 iterations to get it right because there are a lot of different pieces, a lot of moving parts. Right? Payroll's been going on over years, so there are a lot of different pieces to it. And so you remember different pieces each time through, and eventually you kind of get to it. But there is this work together idea that they're not on their own yet, right? That they're doing some work alone, but you're really there to help them with the process. So the third step is to switch roles, and this is really a magical one. I was coaching a client a couple of years ago who was actually headed out on vacation, and her question was, how do I know I can trust the person to do this work while I'm gone? And I said, here's what you do. A couple of weeks before you go, you switch roles. She works in a teaching kind of environment. She manages teachers. I said, so the person you're planning to promote, temporarily while you're gone, is going to take on your manager role while you're going to take on the teacher role for a couple of days. And then you'll know, right? And again, this is the same way with the story about my salesperson. I was working with her to let her make the mistakes while I was still there, right? That was kind of a switch role. She became the lead on sales, and she did the sale. And then we looked at how she had done. And you really need people to have that sort of initiative. And with fish window cleaning, in fact, this was how I worked with the guy who's currently running the business. Early on when he started working for me, I let him start running the bigger jobs. And the other owners in the system thought I was really weird. You're the owner. Why aren't you in charge? I said, no, I said, I want to know, first of all, I want to know what he's like. And second of all, it's much easier to replace me if I'm just cleaning, right? You know, I wanted to kind of know a sort of how he ran things and how he treated people. And I got that by working for him in this environment. So switch roles. Switch roles is really the key piece here. And the really cool thing about switch roles is that the really cool thing about switch roles is that it then works the next level down, because the manager who I trained this way then trained his next in command, did the same thing, let him run the job while he was there. And so now he's actually pulled himself out of that, right? So he doesn't need to run the big job anymore. And so this keeps working down the chain, right? Once you've learned this, you can teach other people to do this. And once you kind of get switch roles working throughout your organization, everyone's much better cross-trained. Things work much more smoothly. It's really a very, very powerful thing for the organization. So the third step once again is to switch roles, and this is really, if you take one thing away from today in terms of delegating, in terms of going on a stress-free vacation, switch roles is really key, because if you switch roles with someone before you go away, you get a sense of how they're going to handle things while you're away, and they get a sense of what it's like to handle things while they still have the safety net of you being there. So it's a really important thing to give them that confidence, right? Oh, it's not as big a deal as I thought, right? So you give them that confidence. So that's the third step. And the fourth step is letting go. And this is really tough. You know, I coach a lot of people, and especially for entrepreneurs, or especially for business people who've been growing their business, it's kind of your baby. You know, you've been doing this. You've been doing this a long time, and it's been tough for me to delegate payroll, because payroll has been my responsibility forever, and it's about money and all these things. And so letting go is the fourth step, and it is a process. It is something which, as a leader, you need something that you're moving on to. You need something to look forward to, something to move towards, so that you can, you know, I have a second business that I run, so it's easier and easier for me to let go of payroll. But letting go is there because it recognizes that this is an issue. It is an actual step, and it is difficult, right? I mean, you've learned how to do this. You're very good at it. Giving that up to someone else is tough to do, and again, it's easier with this process. When we look at the four-step delegation process, it's really to help you let go, right? The people don't like to let go because they're not sure they can trust them. But once you've demonstrated what needs to be done and worked with them on it and let them take control of it while you're still there, letting go gets easier because you kind of know what the environment is like. You kind of know what's going on, and you kind of know how it works. So once again, we talked about the four-step delegation process. If you want more information on this, you can go out to the ReadySetDelegate.com. We have a lot of programs that can walk you through this. And again, it's not that one day you demonstrate and the next day you work together. You can demonstrate for 1 to 2 weeks and then work together for 2 to 4 weeks, and then switch roles for a week or two. And so it just and sometimes you go back. Sometimes you realize you have to re-demonstrate something. You did something and you work together on it, but now you need to re-demonstrate it. And so it's not a linear kind of thing. It hops back and forth. And what you want to be aware of is that you're in this process. And so knowing where you are in this process really helps. And so what we talked about is switch roles, the third step. This is really our key step. When you look at the four-step delegation process, you have to go through all of them. But if you look at having a stress-free vacation, and if you look at building trust, people will get things done when you're not there, switch roles is really the key, really the key thing.